All right, so welcome to our monthly Working Parents Network presentation at the University of Kentucky. Today we will be talking about expectant and new parents, and hopefully we can offer you some tips to thrive. We have wonderful panelists with us today that's going to assist us in sharing information with you. We have Bassoni, who is one of our therapists in our Health and Wellness Department. I'm Azetta Beatty, HR Manager for Benefits and Work+Life. We also have Diana Frankenburger. She is a prenatal education coordinator with our healthcare system. We have Megan Lucy, who is our faculty systems coordinator in the Office for Faculty Advancement and a staff senator. And then we also have Lindsey Powell, who is our FMLA administrator for healthcare and campus here at the university. To get started, we're going to talk a little bit about preparations and transitions. So when you are preparing to leave, there are some things that you want to consider. For one, if you are expecting currently, we want to make sure that you are aware that we do have pregnancy accommodations as an option if you need them here at the university. And there's some a way to reach out and just ask for assistance or see what type of assistance are available to you. That information is located on our website, and if anyone needs it, they can also feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to share that with them. Other things you should do if you are preparing to leave is, of course, look at the leave options. Quite a bit of our presentation today is going to be talking about the FML and how that works and what to do, what to expect for our faculty and our staff. The other thing is think about your length of time for your leave. So, for example, if you want to take 12 weeks of leave or do you want to take 10 weeks of leave, you want to look at how much leave time you've already accrued. How much do you have to take? Will it all be paid? Will some of it be unpaid? That type of thing. You also want to think about childcare. So are you currently signed up on childcare waiting list? If you are expecting, now is the time to sign up on the childcare waiting list for childcare centers, or if you're going to go with in-home care, or even if you're going to have a family member or friend take care of your child, whichever. And then, of course, you want to communicate with your supervisor or your leaderships about your plans. Now we're going to transition to Bassoni.
Hello, everybody. Some little tips. If you go online, there's tons of resources, and everybody has an idea about things that you should do to prepare to leave, and also for transitioning back. So I kind of put a bunch of them together, and this is what you get. So before you go on leave, it's suggested that you write up a leave transition plan, and that means that with your supervisor, you give them your due date, how long you're going to be out, if they can contact you, who contacts you, and in what form, and what to do. This is one I think a lot of people don't think of, but what to do if your water breaks while you're at work. So you might want to designate one person to call your partner or help you get to wherever you need to go, because you just, sometimes you don't know when that's going to happen. So the other thing you want to do is when you think about work, is write down all the projects that you're a part of, all the work that you do. And with the projects, you want to list the status, who the contact people are. And then you want to delegate, if needed, those projects to specific people, and then meet with them to talk about what needs to be done while you're out. And another suggestion is also that you write down all those processes that you do on a regular basis and how you do them, so that whoever might be filling in for you or helping you out while you're gone has an idea of what and how to do things and who to contact, things like that. A client told me this one was to write down all your passwords before you leave. She said she got back and she couldn't remember half of her passwords. So, and that kind of goes along with your brain, you've got baby brain. So she wrote them all down and hid them so that when she got back, she didn't really have to look too hard for those. And then the other thing is to think about what you want to put on your email about being out, and when you plan to return and who they might contact while you're out, so that things go as smoothly as possible. In the weeks and months before, you want to think about what you're going to need for the baby, as far as clothes, I don't know, all that baby stuff. I don't have babies, so all that baby stuff that you need. My sister-in-law, she had a baby 5 years ago, and she is, my niece Lila is younger than the rest of the family, so she gets the hand-me-downs, and she loves it, and Allie loves it too. So she connected with different people to do hand-me-downs, and then she has in turn people that she hands down some of the new stuff that she gets for Lila and hands it down. So what kind of things are you going to need? Do you know anybody that you can borrow those from? Things like that. What are some things maybe that you want to buy because you plan on having more children, or you just something that you would like to keep? And then the self-care part it's pretty important. I mean, obviously you're pregnant and you want to make sure you take the best care of yourself that you can. And that means getting to your appointments and all the, directions they give you about having a healthy pregnancy and a healthy you. And one thing I have found that when talking to people is this is where having a community around you can be really helpful, so that you can get ideas of what other people did when this happened or when that happened and your body felt like this or you were thinking this. They can share ideas, and so you develop that community of people that you trust, that you want to get ideas from or support from when you need it. And then the community connections, these are things like are there birth groups out there? Are there breastfeeding groups? I mean, all those different things. I always go back to my sister-in-law, Allie, who is a breast cancer survivor. So she couldn't produce a lot of milk. So part of her birth group, she connected with one mom who shared milk with her. And that was a great thing that she found because she had found this birth group. What services are out there? And again, this is talking to people who have had babies, who've gone before you, so to speak, and find out what they know about, what they used, what they liked, what didn't work. And so those are some things that we'll touch on a little bit more. It's getting ready to return. I think that a lot of where there's a lot of nervousness, and there's going to be a different things you need to do if you are breastfeeding as opposed to bottle feeding. If you're breastfeeding, they recommend, and Diana, you might correct me on this, but about a month before, starting to freeze some of your milk and getting ready so that if you transition to some bottle feeding, you've got enough, and you've got enough in an emergency. And also that you are comfortable using your pump. So those are some things that you want to do. And also this is interesting, is that they recommend if you're going from breastfeeding and the baby will take a bottle, is that you let other people feed the baby with the bottle so they get used to taking a bottle from somebody else and also taking a bottle. So, that could be any variety of people, just so, I mean, you don't want a stranger off the street, obviously, but anybody that just might be able to help your baby make that transition, and you too. I mean, this is the tough part. And then you want to be practicing your new routine, which, if you'll go to the next slide, there's a little bit more about this. So the big thing when you go back is to realize that you're going to be tired, you're going to be a little bit stressed, you're going to be anxious, you have hormones that are readjusting, and it can be difficult, and that tiredness can increase our sensitivity. So, sometimes, I mean, you always, not always, but sometimes there's the coworkers that have had to do extra work and they're a little testy when you come back. So you might, because you're tired, you might take that differently than if you were working at full steam. So just be aware of what fatigue does to your body and your mind, really. And the other thing is to realize you're not going to come back probably at the same level as where you left. So you're not going to be at the top of the game in that first week or month. So just know it's a gradual process that you might feel really tired at first, and it might be you think, oh gosh, why didn't I remember that? That's natural. That's normal. Your focus and your concentration are going to need extra support and extra patience so that you will be able to do those, because again, not only is it your body adjusting, but it's also you. I mean, you're thinking about maybe your baby at daycare or with a caregiver, and you might feel guilt that you're back at work or things like that. So, there's all these different things that can impact how you do when you come back. I love some of these tips because they're things that I had not really thought about. But I love this idea of a trial run in the week before you return. And that means, like, in the week before, you get up at the time you think you're going to need to get up to get ready and get the baby ready and get to work and drop them off at daycare or wherever, or leave them with somebody at your home. You want to time the whole thing, because you might think, oh, it's just going to take this long, but it might take a lot longer. And maybe you think, well, I'll practice in the afternoon, but the morning rush is very different and might take longer. So you want to practice that. And, the whole thing of washing your hair, of taking a shower, getting in the car, getting everything ready, so that you start developing this routine of what it's going to be like. And also knowing that, the first period of dropping them off, it might be hard for some people. So you might linger a little bit if they don't push you out, before you're done. So that's always a possibility. So you want to do that trial run. And another thing I read was that in doing that trial run, maybe the first 3 days, you just do the trial run and then you come home. But maybe the last 2, you actually drop the baby off, and then you go and you get your hair cut. You get, if you like your nails and your toes done, you go do that. If you feel like you need a new outfit, things aren't fitting the same, you go get some shopping done. So getting ready to go back to the professional world. And if you leave the baby at daycare, it's a practice run for the baby. It's a practice run for you, and you're getting ready to come back, so that you're not coming back, in your robe and half hair, half undone. So, and then the other thing I thought was interesting is they talked about that you might want to actually bring the baby to work if it's possible, so that you can show people where you've been, so to speak. Introduce, because babies most of the time bring about really good feelings. And, you bring them in and you show them where you've been, what you're doing. And it's kind of easing back in and connecting them to you. And I've heard a couple mothers say that they brought in some store-bought treats for their coworkers, just to thank them for filling in and helping them out while they were gone. So those are some things to think about. And it also gives you that feeling of stepping back into the office before you have to be there the whole day. You might think about starting midweek, so that maybe you start on Wednesday or Thursday, so that you have, you work a couple days, and then you have a couple days to kind of decompress, figure out what was working, what was not working. And you can regather your thoughts. So Megan, it looks like I'm overwhelming you.
No, I'm concentrating. I have my babies
Okay.
3 years ago. I'm good.
Okay. You were just like, oh
no, sorry. I'm
that's
just
okay.
listening.
So and also what was starting midweek. I've had people tell me that they bring a couple extra change of clothes. you know, because in case they start leaking, or, you know, because they're kind of maybe not fully focused, maybe they spill something. So have some extra clothes so it doesn't ruin your day. You're not self-conscious, things like that. And have those in your desk. Let's see, what else? And I think the most important thing is to remember that, you know, when you go back, in some ways it's like starting over again, and that initial nervousness that we have when we start a new job, or that excitement too, but understand that this is a process. And you know, as your hormones go back, as you get used to being a new parent, or even a parent now of 2 or 3 or 10 kids, you know, that it's going to take some time to adjust to that. And well, you know, you might feel doubtful. You might think, what am I doing? This is crazy. You might think, oh, I'm being a bad parent for not, you know, staying home with my child. And it's this process of reminding yourself that it is a process, and that you can do this, and to go slow and give yourself some grace. That, you know, if you go and you have a particularly hard day where you were not able to focus and you made a lot of mistakes, that doesn't mean it's going to happen the next day. Okay. What do we got next? Anything? So, I mean, that's basically it. I'll send this handout I have to Azetta to send to you all, but it has some really great websites and some great information of what you might want to, just expanding on some of these that I've just shared with you.
All right. As Azetta said from in the beginning, my name is Lindsey Powell, and I am one of the family medical leave administrators here at UK. There's also another FML administrator, and her name is Elaine Adams, and we both do FMLA for UK Healthcare and UK Campus. So there's no designated person for each one anymore. So you can always reach out to either one of us, and we can answer any FMLA questions that you may have. The first thing we're going to look at is the paid parental leave. So this leave is something that is semi-new. It provides up to 2 weeks of new paid time off. In order to receive this benefit, you do have to be eligible, and there are some eligibility requirements that you can see here. So it does not cover, or it covers regular staff employees, doesn't cover faculty, postdocs, or WEP, and you have to be at least a 0.5 FTE to receive this benefit, and it's for the birth of a child or adoption. One of the things you'll remember with family medical leave is there are some requirements about how long you've been at the university, how long you've been an employee before you can receive those benefits. And the difference with paid parental leave is it is available, as long as you meet those other eligibility requirements, it is available immediately on day 1 of employment. So that's a good thing to note. We get a lot of questions about, well, how do I apply for this? How do I receive this benefit? The first step is you apply for family medical leave. These two work concurrently with each other. And so the first step is to apply for family medical leave. And if you're approved for FMLA, then there's no additional paperwork that you need to fill out for that leave. Once we process your FMLA, we automatically place you in line for the paid parental leave, and you'll receive a separate letter from Chris Dudley, who is my supervisor, but he's the individual that handles the paid parental leave right now. So that's an important thing to note. If you do not, if you are not approved for FMLA, if you're not eligible, then you do have to complete that paid parental leave application. And here's the link for that, that paid parental leave application. You can also reach out to the FMLA office, and we're happy to help provide you with that needed information. A couple of things you need to know about paid parental leave is I mentioned this already, but it does run concurrently with family medical leave. So it doesn't add an additional 2 weeks to the 12 weeks of FMLA that you get. The paid parental leave becomes another type of accrual that is available for use, just like your sick time, your vacation time, your holiday time. So it does run concurrently with FMLA. And those do have, you can't elect to save that for when you return if you're in a no pay status. It does have to be used during that time. You can take it up to 6 months after the birth date or the placement date of the child. So you do have a 6-month window when you can use that. And family medical leave does also cover new placement of a child through foster care, but unfortunately that's not something that is covered under the UK paid parental leave. We're going to shift a little bit, so out of that paid parental leave piece, and we're going to shift into family medical leave. So just a few things you need to know about family medical leave. There are also eligibility requirements for this. And in order to be eligible for FMLA, you have to have worked at UK for 12 months. And that's 12 months in the last 7 years. So it doesn't have to be the last 12 months. And then you have to have worked 1,250 hours in the last 12 months. So if you ever have a question, if you're not sure if you would be eligible for FMLA, you can always reach out to our office. But if you are eligible, then FMLA can provide up to 12 work weeks of leave in a 12-month period. It is important to note that the actual FMLA job protection, it is unpaid leave. Okay, so the FMLA, and there's always some confusion that revolves around this. So the FMLA regulations only provide that federal job protection. And then each institution and each employer gets to decide how their employees will get paid while they're off. So here at the University of Kentucky, you do have to use all of your available accruals concurrently with FML in order to get paid. So that includes paid parental leave, TDL or sick leave, vacation, and holiday time. Just to help wrap your head around that a little bit, your time would be coded as FMLA sick, FMLA vacation, FMLA holiday, or FMLA paid parental leave. So it has the FMLA in front of it to give you that federal job protection, and then it's just pulling out of those accrual buckets. Prior to January 1st, 2020, there was a restriction on how much TDL or sick time that you could use with the birth of a child. But that is no longer, there are no longer restrictions on that information or on that type of leave. So you can use as much TDL time as you have available. And then another thing to note is short-term disability, short-term disability is a really great option to help. A lot of our employees don't have enough sick, vacation, holiday, and paid parental time saved up to cover the entire 12 weeks or the entire time that they're going to be off. And short-term disability is a great option to help supplement your income during that time. But it is important to note that it is a third-party benefit and it does not affect how your accruals are used here at UK. So you'll actually get a separate check. You're going to get a check from that third-party company. It's not going to come through the university. So we have some employees that actually draw a check from their short-term disability insurance company, and they're getting a paycheck from the university. And if that's the case, maybe save that till the end. If you know that you're going to have 3 weeks at the end of your FMLA leave that's going to be unpaid, then maybe put that money back to save for that time. That way you're able, and that's just a suggestion, but we have a lot of individuals that do that. They try to put it back to cover, what your paychecks would be in those last 3 weeks that you're not receiving a paycheck from the university. Let's see, some possible qualifying events for FMLA for the birth of a child and the placement of a child. So it allows FMLA coverage for the birth of a child and to care for that newborn child. It also covers time off to spend with an adopted or a foster child. It is an important thing to note that you have to use for adoption, foster, and the birth of a child, it has to be used within 12 months of the date of placement or the date of birth. So that's an important piece to note. It also covers pregnancy and prenatal care. So the obvious pieces for family medical leave is, of course, it's going to cover the time after the, when the baby's born and the time after, but it can also cover pregnancy and prenatal care issues. So if you have a pregnancy-related illness, extreme morning sickness, if you're placed on bed rest, that kind of thing, you can apply for FMLA prior to the birth. We do need we do have to have supporting documentation stating, that you need to be able to use intermittent FMLA prior to the birth for, pregnancy-related illnesses, but that is a possibility to provide that federal job protection prior to the birth if you're having, extreme morning sickness or you're placed on bed rest or something like that. So you don't have to worry about your job being in jeopardy. It is important to note that any FMLA that you use prior to the birth, so any FMLA you use for pregnancy, illnesses, or prenatal care, that does take away from the total number of days, weeks, or hours that are available to take after the baby's born. FMLA provides a total of 12 weeks in a 12-month period. So it's not 12 weeks per condition or per situation. It's a total of 12 weeks. So it's important to note, any FMLA you do use prior to that, we don't want it to be a surprise when it does take away from, the total 12 weeks. The FMLA process and use. So you do have to submit an FMLA application for FMLA coverage and consideration. We ask that you submit that as soon as reasonably possible. So as soon as you hit that second trimester and you feel comfortable letting people know, we recommend that you go ahead and fill out that FMLA paperwork. It is a federal requirement that you turn it in at least 30 days prior to the birth. So don't wait until the baby's born to submit that paperwork. We do that for a couple of reasons, because number one, we don't want you to have to worry. We don't want you to be dealing with FMLA paperwork when you're in the hospital, giving birth to this baby and, spending time with this newborn. We don't want you worrying about FMLA paperwork. So you need to get that done on the front end. And then, of course, your department needs to know what your plans are. That way they can prepare for your absence and who they need to start filling those roles and things like that. Obviously, you don't know the date that the baby is going to be born. That babies rarely come on that due date. We have had a few, but it is a rare thing. So what you do when you fill out the FMLA paperwork is you list that estimated delivery date as the start date. And we will process your FMLA with that information. So we'll do a tentative approval if you are eligible for FMLA. And in the letter, it will say, this is a tentative approval. You are approved from, X date to X date for FMLA. And then at the end of that first paragraph, it says FMLA can only start on the actual date of birth, the hospitalization date, or the date that you're placed on medical bed rest. When one of those things happen, you need to email our office, and we'll use that email as supporting information to go ahead and update your FMLA to reflect the actual dates. Okay, so instead of worrying about paperwork and getting it faxed in, just use your phone, shoot us a quick email and say, baby was born on this date. Or, if you had to miss work the day before, if you were hospitalized overnight, say, I was hospitalized yesterday and missed work, baby was born today. And we will use that information to update your family medical leave. I'm gonna go next. So most of the individuals that use FMLA use it, of course, continuously for when the baby is born and then the time after for recovery and bonding. But intermittent FMLA is available for certain situations. Of course, it's available. We already talked about this prior to the birth for the physician appointments, prenatal care, and then pregnancy-related illnesses. It does require additional medical documentation. It just has to we can have a doctor's note that says this information on top of that already submitted application, or just make sure that they include it on the application that they submit, that yes, you may need intermittent FMLA time for extreme morning sickness and how often that may occur, those absences may need to occur. FMLA does not provide intermittent FML after the birth unless the child has a serious health condition. So the only way that you can use FMLA after the birth of a child is either and this is, again, for normal situations, normal recovery, and the child doesn't have any serious health conditions. You can use it continuously and as a reduced work schedule. So with the reduced work schedule, that's what Family Medical Leave calls it. A lot of individuals call it phased return to work. So, let's say you have a baby and you want to take off 10 weeks continuously. So you're off every day for 10 weeks. And then the last 4 weeks, the next 4 weeks, you want to return 50%. So 20 hours a week if you work 40, or 3 days a week, or whatever that case may be, you can request to do so. And it is something that, we have to get department approval from. So we'll check with your department, make sure that your position does support something like that. A lot of times that it does, but it is something we have to check on. And then it allows for a pre-approved reduced schedule. So it doesn't allow you to call in. It's something that you have to set in advance, at least a week in advance with your supervisor. Hey, I'm approved to work only 3 days a week this week or next week, and I'm going to work those 3 days on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It doesn't allow you to call in if you wake up on Monday morning and you're like, oh, the baby kept me up late, I'm going to call in, today's one of those days I'm not going to work. FMLA doesn't work that way. It is a schedule that you have to work out with your supervisor at least a week in advance. So just make sure and you're communicating with your supervisor and you stick to that new reduced schedule during that reduced schedule approval timeframe.
I'll take it from here. I'm Megan Lucy. I am the Faculty Systems Coordinator. I'm representing the Office of Faculty Advancement today. Before I go too deep into the slides here, can I just get a quick show of hands of if we have any faculty members on the call? Because if not, I'll adjust the presentation a bit. Okay, I didn't think we had any faculty members on the call, but I know that we have some folks that are involved in leave administration. So I'm just going to give a quick statement that faculty FML and parental leave is administered slightly differently than staff. HR policy 82, which governs the staff leave, only pertains to staff. Faculty leave is governed under a different policy document, which is linked in the presentation here, and it's linked on the Office of Faculty Advancement website. So can you advance the slide, please, Azetta? The big difference between faculty and staff is that faculty members don't accrue TDL days each pay period. So they don't have that bank of accrued leave to use to cover their family medical leave. Instead, they apply for and receive approval through the Office of Faculty Advancement to take leave when they become a parent. There's the details here on the slide for those who may be watching in the future of what exactly that leave covers, and it's linked in the policy document on the OFA website. The approval process for the leave is the same that Lindsey just went over, but it does go through Office of Faculty Advancement in addition to the HR Leave Administration office. Yeah. So there's also, for our non-tenured faculty who are in the tenure track title series, an additional piece of becoming a parent is that it does qualify you to take an extension on your probationary period. of 1 year, and you can do that twice within the probationary period before you apply for tenure. I, as somebody who has administered faculty leave policy for years, I always encouraged our faculty to take that opportunity to extend their probationary period, because if you get to the 6 or 7 year mark and you decide that you don't need it, you can apply for tenure early. But if you get to the end of the probationary period and you do realize that you wished you'd had that extra year, you can't go back afterwards and reverse that decision. Another tip that I always like to tell faculty, but I think that this also applies to staff, when you get your FML forms signed, get a copy for yourself for your own records. I advise this for faculty because we occasionally had issues with the routing of the forms between the doctor's office, HR, and Office of Faculty Advancement. So it was beneficial to have a backup copy that the faculty member held onto. But I also just think that anytime you're dealing with medical forms for yourself, you should have a copy of those forms. It's just good practice. The FML form for faculty gets submitted through Margaret Leach in the provost's office for the non-healthcare colleges, and for faculty members who are in the healthcare colleges, like College of Medicine, College of Pharmacy, College of Dentistry, those get submitted through Charlotte Baker. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact either your dean's office or directly contact the Office of Faculty Advancement and Acting Associate Provost Sue Noakes, and those contacts are listed there on the slide. So that's a quick overview of faculty. If any of you do need a more in-depth information about medical leave for faculty, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Provost Noakes directly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So on this slide, we just want to remind you that HR Benefits is here to assist you to make sure that your different, whatever insurance you may have, benefits are covered when you are off work, especially if you are choosing to reduce your hours when you return to work, or if you take unpaid leave during any of your time that you're off for FML. You just want to make sure that you have your paycheck basically has enough money to cover the different, whatever you've signed up for. It could be parking, it could be, just your insurances, whatever variety of insurances you may have. So you just want to make sure that that is covered. And you can do that really easily by simply connecting with the HR Benefits Office. You can call them at 859-257-9519, option 3, or you can email them at benefits@uky.edu. All right, we're going to transition and talk a little bit about prenatal, breastfeeding, and lactation support. So as we transition into this particular portion of our topic, we do want to mention that UK Healthcare is designated as a baby-friendly hospital, and want to make sure that you're aware that if you choose to pump or if you're breastfeeding your child, we do have lactation spaces on campus and off campus at some of our locations. We have a list of those locations on our website. Oftentimes parents will just use their office if they have a private office, and that's perfectly fine to do that, or a private space within where they work, the building, if they're not using their office. So that's an option. But if you don't have that, we do have lactation spaces, and you can check the list to see what's closest to you and what makes the most sense for you. Also want to make sure everyone is aware that with your insurance, Anthem Insurance, you do receive one free breast pump per pregnancy. And some parents may choose to use that, or they may just get one and don't get another one. But we just want to make sure you are aware. And there's a free version. There's a version that's covered for the breast pumps, and then there's sort of an upgrade option. And when you are looking at our different vendors, you get to select which pump you want. And if you need recommendations, that's where the community piece that Ann mentioned earlier, and then Diana's going to talk a little bit about this as well. I mean, you may just want to talk to some people and ask about their experiences with a variety of pumps if this is your first time selecting one. And then, of course, we've already mentioned, making sure that you've talked to your supervisor or your leadership and making sure that you have already designated spaces for pumping and, create a schedule. And with creating a schedule, obviously you won't know all the pieces of that until you're back fully, but you can start thinking about just kind of how your schedule is when you're home. And then when you come back, you might want to think about trying to stay on that schedule if at all possible. And then block that space off on your Outlook calendar so that you can maintain that space. And then there's a variety of resources available to you when you're on this journey as well. And that includes the Breast Beginners app, the Mommy and Me breastfeeding classes, Building Healthy Families, which is a new resource that is offered through Anthem. And then there's some infant nursing classes as well. Transitioning to Diana.
Okay. Thanks for having me here. I'm Diana Frankenburger. I'm the prenatal education coordinator here at UK, and I'm a certified lactation specialist. I wanted to share with you and be sure you have access to that Breast Beginnings app. Dr. Becky Collins created it, and it's gotten some national attention. I've got QR codes here that you'll get as part of this presentation to be able to download it. And then it's also available, you should see it in all, wherever you're going for provider for your OB care. Next. In those first couple of weeks, if you aren't sleep deprived by the end of your pregnancy, by the time we finish with you in labor and delivery, I guarantee you're going to go home exhausted. Typically, that's you and your partner. And so you really need that recovery time from birth. While babies typically sleep maybe 18 out of 24 hours, that sleep is usually in 1 or 2 hour segments at a time. And so it's hard to get rest. And babies will also seem to be more awake at nighttime. That's typically their pattern, even when you're pregnant. And so it feels like you're up even more at night. So it's important to make sure you take time to rest when your baby's sleeping. Don't use it to run around and clean and organize things. You need to use it to relax and heal and recover from your delivery. And those first couple of weeks are really difficult for moms and babies. So your job is really just to practice breastfeeding and get better at it. How can your partners help? It's important that they know the benefits of breastfeeding and why it's important for you and your baby, and also what a hungry baby looks like. We do go over that in our childbirth class, more in our breastfeeding classes. And so I would encourage you, if this is your first time doing this, to take a class and have your partner take a look at what we provide in that class too. And even watch videos on what a proper position looks like and how to latch properly so they can help you when you're home. Provide you with pillows, get you in a right position, get you something to drink. Those are all important things partners can do when you get home. During the hospital stay, they will typically help your partner help with feeding the baby, usually finger feeding or something they call S&S. And partners can also, if you're up at night to feed the baby, they can go take the baby and change them, maybe stimulate them if they start to get hungry during a feed or act uninterested. And then if you're combining pumping with breastfeeding, they can learn how to wash parts, and they too can learn how to bottle feed if that's part of how you're planning to feed your baby. Getting the right pump is really important. And luckily, we're very fortunate. UK Anthem covers some really good pumps, and you'll be able to choose several different options. Some of the ones you'll see on here are like the Spectra 2, and then also there's a Spectra 9, and I think both of those are covered under our benefit with Anthem. Also, Medela has a pump and style that I think is also covered. You can upgrade your pump depending upon what your needs are. There's another picture on here. This is of the Willow, and it works with your phone. Elvie and Willow are two. They're a little more expensive. They are coming out with some versions that are not as expensive. The reviews on them are not all in yet. So this one has really good reviews. I also included on here a guide from Spectra about flange size. Most of your pumps will come standardly with 2 different flange sizes, and 2 sizes don't fit all of us. So it's actually a good idea to measure, and they can help you with this in the hospital. If you don't get that done in the hospital, you can look at this website, and there's a guide on how to measure yourself, and you can purchase flange sizes that would be better for you. You don't want it to be too big. You don't want it to be too small. It really needs to be just right so that you don't get breakdown or discomfort, and so that it's better at removing milk for you. And another thing I would say about pumps too is be sure that you use your pump as it instructs you. For instance, the Spectra has a cycle. Use the cycle the way it's set up, and you'll find that you'll get more milk when you do it the way it's designed. And it usually will take 25 minutes or so to remove milk the way it should be done. Some other things to think about is finding a good calm place to pump, and looking at that, as they've all said today, before you have your baby. Figure out where are people in your department pumping. Talk with your supervisor about that. Make sure that you have a place you can relax. Consider using a little hand expression or massage while you're using your pump. Some women actually wind up pumping exclusively for the year, and there are some support groups. Exclusive Pumping Mamas is one. It's a Facebook group, and they can actually help you determine eventually how much milk you're going to need and how many pump sessions you actually need to keep producing that amount. As far as milk storage and warming, I like the rule of 4s. There's a little variation on this everywhere, but this is pretty standard. Your milk is good for 4 hours at room temperature, 4 days in the refrigerator, and 4 months in the refrigerator attached to your refrigerator, the freezer there, and then up to a year if you have a deep freeze. But once you thaw it, you really need to use it in 24 hours. So if you're also using a cooler and bringing it home from work, you can store it with an ice pack, and it's good for 24 hours there. When you warm it back up, you can use hot water. You can heat a bowl of water in the microwave and put the milk in there to warm it up. Just remember to swirl it between your hands. Don't shake it up and down. That there are live cells in there, and you want to swirl. Next slide. Also, when you're storing your milk, if you're using, for instance, if you're using bags, put the date and how many ounces are in there, and also the time of day you pumped. That may sound like an odd thing to add, but actually you have hormones in your milk. So your milk first time in the morning has cortisol in it. That kind of wakes you up, right? And then when you're pumping at night, you will have more serotonin in your milk. And so that may make baby sleepier. So if you have that time of day, you'll kind of have an idea of what those extra things, how they might affect your baby. Be sure you leave 1 inch at the top of the bag or bottle to allow for expansion during freezing. Be sure they're sealed well, and then if you're using the bags, you can turn them on their side and store more of them. They take up less room in like a bigger bag. And there's also a pump log app that you can use to help track how much you're storing, and can help you calculate how much you're going to need.
All right. Thank you, Diana. Were there any other comments or anything else you wanted to share before I just go to these next slides?
Not especially that I can think of right now. Just be patient. I think if I had to say anything, those first 2 weeks are going to seem like you're overwhelmed. Not only are you recovering from childbirth, sleep deprived, but breastfeeding on top of it, it can be very overwhelming. So be patient with yourself and with each other, and hang in there, because it gets easier. It really takes some time in the beginning and practice. And that's why you should concentrate only on that and recovery and feeding your baby.
All right. Thank you. So Building Healthy Families is one of the resources that's offered through Anthem. And Future Moms is the resource that they used to have, and it was replaced by Building Healthy Families. And so there's quite a few additional options that's a part of the Building Healthy Families resource. There's online digital resources, there's personalization options, There's all types of additional things. So I just basically wanted to just mention that, especially if you're someone that you've already had a baby, if you already used the Future Moms resource, or you've heard of that. Just want to let you know we no longer have that option, but we do have a more robust option that's available to you. So talking a little bit as we transition to talk about new parents. So let's just say you already have babies already here. You're already in the thick of it. You're already figuring things out. Here's a few things we just wanted to remind you of, or even make you aware of if you're not already aware of it. We do have a UK Working Parents Network, and that group, we offer a monthly talk like we're doing right now on the second Tuesdays at noon via Zoom. We also have a parents coffee chat that we offer on the third Wednesdays at 8:30 for just 30 minutes via Zoom as well. And that's a very informal chat. A lot of parents really appreciate that time because that's a space where you can just go and have a conversation as if you're just talking to a friend about things that's going on with you or your parenting or your child, and just get some advice for resources and so forth. We also host a variety of activities and workshops and for example, summer camps fair, parents resource fair, and lots of other things. And also, if you connect with this group via our Facebook group or via our MS Teams group, that's a space where you can post a question. If you have questions about different things, it could be an immediate something that has happened and you're thinking, gosh, I need a resource or I need suggestions or advice. You can just post a question to the group and people will respond to you. Also want to make sure everyone is aware that we do have our flexible spending accounts, which can be a really great resource to help you save and put money aside for childcare expenses or even healthcare expenses. I currently still use the healthcare option, and you can use that for your copays when you go to the doctor or just paying bills, your healthcare bills. So that's just something to look into. And you do have to sign up for that during open enrollment, which is coming up starting, I do believe, tomorrow. April the 12th through about mid-May or so. And so that's something you have to sign up for every year. So if you are currently thinking about that, I would actually recommend you go ahead and look into that option just to see if it's something that makes sense for you. We have a ton of childcare resources and apps and website links and ways to search for childcare facilities and ways to how to evaluate facilities, all types of things like that on our Working Parents website as well. We do have a resource called Big Blue Family Care, which is a childcare referral service that also can be used for pet care. So there's an online form that a parent can complete to get like a temporary babysitter. One way to think about that is part-time care, such as after school, nights, and weekends. And it's best utilized for planned occasions, not last minute urgent emergency care. But if you know you have some activity coming up, or you need after school pickups, or you just have date nights or anything like that, you can submit a form and we'll try to refer some students to you. And they are UK students that we have talked to, we vetted them, we've done background checks and so forth. Also, the KY Saves 529 plan, that is just a way to save money for your child. You can do it for each child if you have multiple children. And that's a way to save money for educational expenses. And so that's something that you can find a link on our HR website for that, just to learn a little bit more about it. And you connect through that through your My UK portal as well. And then there's just a list of upcoming activities as well on here. Some other things I wanted to also mention, our work, life, and well-being resources, just in case you're not familiar with them. We do have quite a few other resources to assist you on your work-life well-being journey, which we know if you are dealing with parenting needs, oftentimes there's a lot of additional support that you may need. Even if you don't have children, you need these supports. So we do have mental health clinicians. We have 4 in-house clinicians, and then we have 3 part-time clinicians. And they do offer 5 free sessions per fiscal year. You can meet with them in person or virtually. We have dietitians that can assist you with your dietary needs or just creating healthy eating plans for yourself. They also do they have a variety of classes that you can join, and they do one-on-one as well. We have personal finance options, personal resilience options. That's our health coaches. We have physical fitness experts that can assist you. You can join 1 or 3 or all of our gyms. You can do online only options for fitness, whatever works for you. And we also have elder care consultation. Just to say you are the person that not only are you providing childcare, but you may be also assisting an aging loved one with their needs, or you may see that coming in your future. There's a way to sign up to be on a listserv to receive a monthly blog and newsletter about elder care related topics. And then also you can do a one-on-one consultation. So with all of these resources, you have the option to, all of them offers some type of consultation, group setting, sometimes groups. All of them do one-on-ones. Oftentimes there's some sort of activity or outreach or event. But if you need this support, I highly encourage you to maybe start with checking out our website and learn more about the resources and how you can sign up and how you connect with them, and go for it. All right, so I'm not going to talk about this slide, but just want to mention that there's a ton of other resources available to you to support you on your journey. So as always, congratulations to all of our new parents and expected parents. And I love this little quote here on this picture. It says, sometimes the littlest things take up the most room in your heart. Thank you guys for joining us. All right, if you guys have questions for our speakers, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type it in the chat. And I do know, I noticed the chat was, people had different questions popping in there, and I think people were answering them. But if you want to unmute and you still have a question, feel free to do so. Ask the question.
I do not have a question. This is Bobby Joe. I'm the program coordinator for the Staff Senate. I just want to say thank you. Everyone that presented today, your spirit is so gentle, and you can just tell you're aligned with what you need to be doing. And I just wanted to express that to you, that it's so, I've got grandbabies now. I wish I had this information 30 years ago. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you for the work that you do. And I hope this would be a great presentation to bring to the Staff Senate. So just if that's something you would want to consider.
Thank you, Bobby Joe.
Thank you.
I think we actually had several representatives from Staff Senate on the call today because I encouraged my policy committee to join. One thing that we didn't, I'm not sure that it actually got mentioned during the course of the presentation, but I think is helpful to know, is if you become a parent through adoption or foster care placement, the question often comes up, who signs the FML forms? And in those cases, a social worker or a judge can sign, right, Lindsey?
So typically what we do with adoption and foster care is page 1 has to be completed by the employee, and then we don't need pages 2 and 3 completed unless the child has a serious health condition. We just need the official court documentation stating that the child's been placed in the care of the employee.
And Lindsey, what about for a father taking paternity leave after his partner has a baby? Does the partner's doctor sign, or would it be similar?
So if typically what we do is, when it's of course they're supposed to fill it out, at least 30 days in advance, just because they have the same rights and responsibilities as the female giving birth. But when they do that during the pregnancy, when they do it prior to the birth, it's typically the only person that'll fill it out is the OBGYN or whoever, the midwife, whoever's treating the mother and it's going to be assisting with the birth. Yeah.
Follow up to that response is, does the partner get 2 weeks, or are they also eligible for the 12 weeks?
They are eligible for the full 12. It does have to be the parent of the child, of course, but the male and female parents both have the same rights and the same responsibilities. So they get the full 12 weeks as long as they're eligible, of course.
There's a question in chat. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that there were some questions in the chat.
Yeah. So let's see. Let me just read through this question because it looks like it's a phased return to work. So if you use the full 12 weeks consecutively off, then your FMLA ends on that date. So, you know, trying to return after that on a phased return to work, that would not be something that's coverable under FMLA because you've used your 12 weeks. So if you do want to return, you would need to stop those 12 weeks a little short, and then you can spread out that time. So like, for example, I'm 40 hours a week. If I'm 40 hours a week, and if I wanted to return after 10 weeks, that leaves me 2 full weeks, 80 hours of FMLA to use from that point on. If I wanted to go down to 20 hours a week instead of 40, then I could do that for 4 weeks. You know, do a reduced schedule of 20 hours a week for 4 weeks. Or, you know, if depending on how many hours you want to work, there are ways that we can work through that and figure that out. That way it doesn't go over the 12 weeks, but you do get the full benefit of your 12 weeks. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's a question about short-term disability that, Azetta, you may need to handle.
No, you cannot. That's the answer. Short-term disability is one of those that you have to sign up for during open enrollment. So there are some, the majority of the benefits you have to sign up for during open enrollment, but there are some that you can sign up for anytime. And I think we need to promote that more. There's a good handful actually of that you can just sign up for them anytime.
Yeah, and another thing I note that is important to note about this, even though it's not really in my field, but I've been through this presentation enough and these, you know, little lunch and learns. So if you do sign up for short-term disability, in order to use it for the birth, you have to have been paying into that short-term disability for 10 months. So like, for example, if you're already pregnant and you're, you know, 3 months along or even a month along, if you signed up for it now and, you know, or during open enrollment, you would not be eligible to use it for the birth of this baby. So it's always something that you need to do. You know, like me, we're trying to have a baby, but I've been signed up for it for 6 years, you know. So you just never know when that's going to happen. And that is something that they require that you pay into 10 months prior to having the baby.
Mm-hmm. That's great. All right. Thank you for staying over, guys. I know we got to all probably go on to the next thing. And that's how it goes, right? Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Bye. Good to see you.